Southpaw against Southpaw. So Connor will slow down. Look at the mouth! My goodness! Now he's got the back! Now! He's out! He has done it! It is all over!
Oh, what did we say before this fight? We had never seen...
Oh no! I want to take a chance and risk getting knocked out! Oh my God! Finish him! It is all over! History has been made! Conor McGregor!
Incredible performance.
Hey, what is going on, my fellow godlies and Gears of War enthusiasts around the world? This is Vance bringing you yet another episode of the Gears of War God Build series. So before we get into this video, I have to release a small disclaimer because previously when I attempted to record commentary for Jack, it went on a 33-minute rant video about the franchise itself and the many mistakes plaguing this game. So what I'm going to try to do in this video is I'm going to try to condense my critiquing of Gears of War 5 to feedback that really has to do with Jack. But before we get into that, I wanted to state that it's very confusing to me to see features that are in the campaign that aren't in Horde or Escape, features such as being able to possess a Warden. In the campaign, you play as Kate, and she gets snatched by a Snatcher and is able to control a Warden. That's something Jack is not able to do with his ultimate, despite his ultimate clearly stating, take control of an enemy and wreak havoc. Obviously, a Warden would be a great asset to get a hold of, and you can't do it. Why, I don't know. There's also something else that I'd like to point out here. So in the Horde classes, you have your Assault, Tank, Support, Promotional, all of which don't necessarily have justifiable classes within those genres. However, you will notice that Assault has 5 classes, Tank has 5 classes, and Support has 5 classes, but Promotional has only 4. That brings the total amount of classes up to 19. That's an odd number. I don't know if anybody else in the viewers has OCD like I do, but 19 is a odd number, it's not even, and you're just one away from 20. So why not include a class that reintroduces the Hammer of Dawn, something that's a part of the campaign, something that was a staple weapon from the very conception of this franchise, and something that's absent here. I would like to see Hammer of Dawn be the 20th class. Now here's where it gets really weird. So if you tab over to the Escape classes, you will notice that Support only has 4 classes now, and that is because Jack is absent. Jack cannot be played in Escape, which is also another confusing factoid because, well, when you're playing in Campaign, Jack is one of the playable characters, and Campaign is very similar to Escape. You're traveling from point A to point B to accomplish an objective. So, why can you not use Jack? I don't understand. Maybe the developers thought that Jack would make Escape too easy, or that he would be overpowered, and on the contrary, he wouldn't be because, well, he's just as fragile, if not more fragile than the other cog. He's limited as to what he can do, he can't really attack, he's really only there to revive teammates. And furthermore, I would like to air my grievances out and state that if you rewind to, classic upgrades in gaming history, the Nintendo 64 introduced 4-player co-op, and that was some 20 plus years ago. 2 decades have passed where we have had 4-player co-op every day since then, yet games like Outriders and Gears of War 5 want to take one massive regressive step back and introduce us to a campaign that's 3-player co-op, an escape mode that's 3-player co-op, despite previous titles within this series being 4-player co-op. To me, that's inexcusable. And don't give me this shit about balance. All you would have to do is make bigger maps and throw in more enemies if that's what you really think is holding 4-player co-op back. There's no excuse for us to be playing 3-player co-op. We should have 4-player co-op. We should be allowed to have all of our classes, including Jack, and anything that we have access to in the campaign, we should innately have access to in Horde and Escape. So now that I've wasted 4 minutes of this intro video ranting, albeit the fact that all of it pertains to Jack, let's get into the actual build for Jack. So, the description of Jack is the most accurate description I've seen of any class in any game ever. It tells you exactly what you need to know. Jack is a one-of-a-kind support bot with the ability to cloak, heal, and stun. His versatility makes him invaluable to the team. This couldn't be any more true. I really can't stress how accurate this is. That is exactly what Jack does and what he is designed to do. And you would not believe how many times I see players idiotically trying to use him as an attack drone. Yes, he can do that because, the Zapper mod allows you to, really stun lock enemies and kill them for the most part, but you're incredibly vulnerable while you're doing that. The main playstyle for a Jack player, and I'm sorry, if you're not playing this way, you're not playing correct. You need to be staying near the Fabricator at all times, or the base of operations where your players are bunkering down, and you need to be playing defensively. So there are flusher enemy types, such as Juvies and Rejects and Leeches. They are all designed to get up close and personal to your team and flush them out of their cover so that they're easier targets for enemies to hit. And in a game like this that is as flawed as it is, it's going to be really easy for your team to go down and go down quick. Why? Because if you've ever used the claw, you know how just absurdly inaccurate it is due to recoil. The enemies don't have to deal with that inaccuracy. In fact, they could kind of land shots from you repetitively from across the map, which in of itself is a problem on its own. Something that I would implore the developers to decrease the accuracy of the enemies, because it's just not fair that the AI have superior aiming than what we have. It's really not, and I'm not trying to make this game less challenging. I like the fact that it's challenging, I just don't like the fact that it's not fair. The enemies and the players should be on equal footing. We should have to deal with the same amount of issues, and the fact being very simple that the enemies don't have to deal with the same issues. In fact, we have to deal with all of these issues holding us back when they're really just design flaws, and you can't debate that. So here we are having to deal with, heavy gunners such as Mulcher Scions that can land shots accurately from across the map, and Boomshot Scions. So the less you're exposed, the more safe you will be and the more probable your chance of success is. You as a Jack player are designed to keep the flushers away from your teammates by stun locking them with the zapping tool. What good are you if you're not even anywhere near the base and you're off zapping enemies that your teammates could take down just as easily? So this game is just as methodical and intelligent as it is skillful and build worthy. You need to be thinking about this. You need to be very considerate of what this class provides to the team, otherwise you're likely going to fail. And I have seen it play out hundreds of times. Bad Fabricator locations, people not understanding what their class provides. And let me just say this, if you're one of these people being a level 1 class and you're going into an inconceivable challenge, you are a piece of shit, and you are contributing to the already horrible community that is toxic as fuck in the Gears of War community. I can't stand it. Don't go into an inconceivable thinking that you're just instantly going to win. meaning that if you go into a lobby that's inconceivable, understand that it's going to be challenging and you're likely going to die. I have seen far too many people go into an inconceivable, run out in the middle of battle, get utterly fucking destroyed, and then quit. Again, you are a piece of shit if you do this. And we really need to let it be known. We actually need to put these people's names on blast and develop some type of form of blacklisting to just prevent people from having to play with these fucking inconsiderate bastards, because it's ruining this franchise. And it's not just the players' fault, it's also the developers for creating such a game that doesn't really have a linear progressive system to it. And yes, this still pertains to Jack because people do this even in HORDE. And as you're trying to level up your Jack player, well, you're really not going to be useful to the team if all of your DPS team have quit. And all you're left with is supportive players, or players that are really only good as one-trick ponies. For example, melee classes, they're really only good at close-range combat, and they're going to get shat on when it comes to long-range threats. And likewise, if you have long-range combat classes, they're not very good close-range. So you need a healthy blend of all these classes in order to be successful. And when you have people quitting, well, the AI soldiers aren't very good. They're not going to help you out too much. We could make an entire video on how bad the AI is, both for your side and the bad people's, the enemy's side. It's ridiculous. I could go on, and here we are venturing off of the topic of Jack, but again, it all pertains to Jack. You need to be playing a max efficiency Jack. And how we're going to do that is very simple. Here's the build itself. So I'm going with Healing Reach because that is what Jack he excels at doing this. This is the #1 application for Jack, is to be a healer. He has the advantage that nobody else has. The only one who can compare to him is the combat medic. When the combat medic kills something near someone who is downed, it will revive them. Jack is the only one who can do this without those conditions. As long as he's close enough, and given the fact that he has quite a reach, he can revive them from a distance. And he can do it without committing to an animation. We can develop an entire video about animations and how they really hold back people progressing in Gears of War, because they do. They make you very vulnerable, and Jack doesn't have to deal with that. So it's very important that you max out this mod, the Healing Reach. You put it in your loadout, because that's his #1 application. Now his second application is Hijack. The ability to take control of an enemy and alleviate pressure from your team is key to your success. I can't tell you how many times that all 4 of my teammates were down and I was the only person up as a Jack player. And I made a strategic decision to possess an enemy and use it to fight all the other enemies to, kind of focus all the enemies out of the base and allow me to go back there and revive some teammates, on top of, getting rid of a lot of enemies that could potentially threaten my team once they are revived. And I will say this: if you're going to hijack an enemy, make sure you hijack a Molter Scion or a Boomshot Scion, because they're going to be the ones that do the most amount of damage. They're just the best enemy to take control of. There's really no other enemy that you can take control of. And as long as you're using this mod Rampage, you could hypothetically take control of a Theron Sentinel, because the Torque Bow is going to be very strong with the bleeding damage, along with any other weapons that the drones carry. But in comparison to a Boomshot Scion or a Molter Scion, which do a tremendous amount more than any other drone in the game, it's just kind of unanimous which enemy you need to take control of. It's the Scions. You need to be taking control of them 10 times out of 10. You never want to waste your hijack on a juvie. That's really dumb. Another mod that you need, and is sad in my opinion because I fully believe that it should be combined with sacrifice, is the explosive hijack. So what this does is it terminates the enemy you have control over after you hijack them. And the reason why this is necessary is because if you don't have this mod on, what will happen is when your hijack is done, it just leaves that enemy alive and they can resume attacking your players. Well, one of the things that players do is once they realize that a jack has taken control of an enemy, they won't focus fire on that enemy anymore and they will deem it a non-threat. So you don't want to put them in a compromised position in which the enemy is already behind ally front lines and has an upper hand able to attack them. And this is why I think that explosive hijack should be combined with sacrifice, because sacrifice allows you to revive any downed teammates upon the enemy's death. This would be incredibly useful and would parallel to healing reach if only it could just be combined with explosive hijack, because you need the enemy to die after you go into cooldown, and you would also like to revive allies if you can, but since you can't, we can't put sacrifice in our mod setup because we need other things, we need other space. So repair fortifications with repair speed is also a necessity. Guys, I can't stress to you enough how much bullshit you have to deal with in between waves. As a jack player, especially if you're using optimizer, which in my opinion is not fucking worth it. I've talked about this in detail in previous videos, such as the engineers, where you have to do too much maintenance in between waves. You have to empty the taps, you have to collect power, you have to max out your perks, you have to, with the weapons forge, run weapons to the forge, and I think that there should be some modifications made to the game. I believe that if you have a tap that's functional and it's not destroyed, it should passively pick up all of the power that's on the field, regardless. You shouldn't have to pick up power at all. The tap should just grab them. The only time that you should have to pick up power from enemies dying is if you don't have any taps on the field, they're all destroyed. And furthermore, after the wave is ended, the tap should automatically empty into everyone's inventory. That way you don't have so much maintenance you have to go through. And the fact that you can't move the taps, you can't decide where the taps are, you just have to play Russian roulette with the locations, and that hinders the effectiveness of your strategy. It's guys, it's really a lot of bullshit that Jack has to deal with, because not only does he have to operate the forge and collect these guns and throw them into the forge, which he doesn't get enough power from to begin with, but he's got to repair fortifications, he's got to worry about his own perks. There's so much that needs to be corrected about this class. It's almost not worth playing. I fully believe that Jack should have a passive ability to reel in all of the guns after the wave ends. He should just be able to use a full map magnetism that pulls in all of the guns to one location. That way he can spam the forge and get a lot more power out of it. And this needs to be buffed. It may seem like a big number, 150%, but it's really not. It really, I mean, in high pressure waves where you critically need the power, you don't get enough. And I discussed this in the engineer video. I think that if you increase the amount of power that every class gets, especially the engineer classes, this might make optimizer worth using. But then again, you have that issue of having to go grab all of the individual guns, and I think that a welcome change to that system would be to combine the weapons. So for example, if you have an enforcer on the ground that's only got 90 bullets left in the chamber, well, you can pick up another enforcer and add to that pool of ammunition, therefore making that gun actually go for a lot more power. Do you see what I'm saying? So if there's two lancers on the ground and you simply combine those two into one. That one becomes worth more because it has more ammunition for it. That way, all Jack would have to do is reel in all of the weapons from around the map, and then the players could combine the weapons that are already on the ground, throw them to the ground, and let Jack throw them in the forge, that way making it actually worth it. Otherwise, it's not. So, the last mod that you want to include for this setup would be the Zapper, as we discussed before. You want to try to keep the flushers off of your teammates at all times, and this is going to help you do that. Normally, I wouldn't include this mod in my setup because it's more important to help the team than it is to kill enemies, but what I have found in playtesting is that well, the Zapper by itself isn't strong enough to kill juvies. You have to zap them, cool your taser, zap them, cool your taser. You'll have to do this in succession like 3 different times, and it can get very annoying and waste a lot of time. So if you include the Zapper upgrade, you can usually one-shot a juvie in the lower waves, which really matters. Because before people really get their perks up and their defenses, the juvies are going to be a massive threat. They're quite underestimated in this game. When you're leveling up your classes and you're leveling up your perks and just getting everything ready to operate at max efficiency, juvies are a big threat. And so Jack is really an anti-flusher type of class. And here's where we get to talking about another issue with Jack. He is a flying ally, yet he's still restricted to hover above surfaces that he can navigate over. Well, here's the problem with that. If you're navigating over something like a vehicle, something that the cog can't stand on top of, and you happen to go down while in transit, oftentimes you'll go down on top of a cover where nobody can reach you. You can't be revived, so you're just waiting to die, and even worse, then your cog tags stay in place, and they can't even bring you back to the Fabricator to revive you. This is bullshit and quite lazy development, if you ask me. This is a bug that has gone on for years, and they still haven't squashed it. It's inexcusable. I'm fucking tired of games as a service. As a AAA company, you should be releasing a full-featured game day one release without all these goddamn bugs that fucking break the classes. Pardon me if I get a little bit mad about this, but this is a bug that's still in the game today, and this game is 3 years old. It's inexcusable, it's lazy, it needs to be fucking addressed. It should not be something that survives into Gears of War 6. I will be fucking livid if Jack is in the game and he's still able to be downed on surfaces that we can't access as COG. That is an issue that plagues the Gunner class as well, because if you go into a map like Blood Drive and you're at the top of the map and you're operating one of your heavy guns, such as a Mulcher or a Tri-Shot, you will get downed while you're peeking over cover, and then instead of the gun falling towards you and being able to be picked up after you revived, no, it falls into the environment where you can't get it anymore, and you have effectively wasted power. God forbid you had bought that gun with your power. It's ridiculous. In escape mode, if we're killed, we drop our weapons. It marks our weapons on the floor. It doesn't do that on HORDE. And it should. It really should. Because a lot of things waste power in a game that's already starving you for power and forcing players to be toxic towards one another. Very oftentimes, players, especially hosts in custom games, demand that you donate to the Fabricator. Well, that's a huge hindrance to a lot of classes. Classes like Demolitions and Veterans, who really need to focus on their perks because their perks are what's going to keep the team alive in the early waves. They don't need to be donating to the Fabricator, they need to be focusing their energy into their perks. Yet, Jack is severely impacted by people who don't donate to them. So, how do we solve these problems? Well, as I said in the previous video of Engineers, You increase the amount of power that's gained from engineers. That way they don't have to rely on others to add fortifications and repair them. You have to balance things better because they fucking suck as is. And we have to deal with critical game-breaking issues that really hinder this franchise as a whole. And as a result, there's not a lot of people that want to deal with this bullshit, and they don't play it. They play other games. And let's face it, in 2021, we have a plethora of games that we can choose alternatively. We don't have to deal with Gears of War's shit. And that's really the most that you're going to hear me rant in any class video, because Jack is just the sore thumb of the hand. He really suffers where other classes don't. He has to deal with the bullshit of the engineers. He has to deal with the bullshit of only being able to be used in HORDE. He has to deal with the bullshit of constantly having to upgrade traits and level ups in the campaign that nobody else has to deal with. People have to wait on Jack players for scripted events and to level up their class. Jack is seriously just like, do the developers hate Jack? Obviously they do, because they killed this poor motherfucker off at the end of the campaign. Whew. Boy, if you're a Jack player, you are getting punished. You're getting bent over and you're getting spanked, and I don't like it, and that's why I'm making this video, to help these guys, because there is definitively a few effective ways to build for Jack, and unfortunately, a lot of these mods, they're just not it. It's really not it. I don't know why score boost is something that every class has. You don't need it after a while. Increase the health of hijacked enemies by 70%. Well, that would be great if it fucking mattered. That would be really great if that mattered. But again, Jack is not an offensive class, so there's really no need to waste a mod slot on this. You could deal with some of these issues by allowing classes to have 6 mods to choose from instead of just 5. Even just that one extra mod slot would be incredibly helpful to certain classes, such as Jack. So I can offer up a myriad of suggestions to make this game better, but it's ultimately not going to matter if Coalition isn't listening, so that's why I'm telling the fans, so that the fans can outcry, and hopefully Gears of War 6, which we know is inevitable at some point, will deal with these issues. So that pretty much concludes my build for Jack. I hope that you've learned something from this video. As always, I will encourage you to comment, share, subscribe, and ring that bell notification icon so you're up to date with everything that I upload. And until next time, this has been Vance, and you can't add Vance without Vance. Thank you very much. See you next time. Peace.